This is Angel Connect, the podcast show, episode number 10. An interview with Dick Benckendorf by Hall Martin, where he discusses the processes for creating a deal and for investment criteria. In this episode, Hall Martin interviews Dick Benckendorf, an investor who basically has been in the technology area for many years and has a background in corporate America as well as in financial America. One of the things that he stresses is that his firm is strictly enforcing what he calls the 6 quick investment criteria, and he describes what they are. And as you'll see and hear in this particular episode, 80% of those who come into this particular criteria do not qualify. Only 2% are really qualified deals. He also discusses critical processes, especially in the area of exit agreements and exit strategies, and how to get good results with good IRRs. So, he describes what he calls the successful entrepreneur, not what he calls the failing entrepreneur. So let's listen in to this particular interview as Hall Martin discusses the criteria of investment and a successful entrepreneur with Dick Benckendorf. Let's listen in.
Well, this is Hall Martin with Angel Connect. I'm here with Dick Benckendorf of Technology Impact Partners. Dick, thanks for being with us today. Dick, can you tell us more about Technology Impact Partners and how you got to your current investment philosophy?
Sure. Prior to Technology Impact Partners, I had a job with a number of major corporations, including IBM, ADP, and Becton Dickinson. During that corporate environment that I worked in, I came to appreciate that technology itself moved very, very fast, but the applications of technology and the needs of technology continued through the actual change in the underlying technologies. I had, as a result of some very nice employers, I was able to raise $155 million for my first fund, which was called TDT Technology. And the purpose of that fund was to invest in the same things that I do today. However, as successful as we were, I found that there's parts of the funding process and part of the venture capital process I really did not enjoy too much. And that was basically the issues of raising money and satisfying the needs of the limited partners. So what I ended up doing was saying, look, why don't I just invest for myself? I know what I want to do. I've been fortunate. I made a little bit of money with these partners, and despite their desire to continue and have another round, I decided that I would not do that. So for the last, since 1990, have been investing basically for my family, who are my limited partners, and myself. In full disclosure, though, I do have a private equity fund that we run out of Chicago called Concentric, which invests in little later stage investments. Now, my deal flow in the venture side has started to diminish as I age. We're now seeing about 300 deals a year that are primarily sourced from attorneys, accountants, other funds. We have 4 major funds on both coasts and in Chicago that we do quite a bit of business with. They actually bring deals to us because of our focus, and we'll discuss that a little bit more in just a second or two. Other sources of deals are the past investments we've made, the executives that we've worked with, and also some of the family members have actually bought us deals through their friends and associates. In addition, I'm also an advisor to several other venture funds in Chicago, Houston, and Austin, in which I have a little bit of a GP interest. But my love and my business is the angel or semi-angel venture investing that I do. And what do we invest in? We invest only in technology-driven service companies with the emphasis on service. The underlying technologies that drive these services are the confluence of computing and communications technologies. That sounds like it might be pretty narrow, but it is not. There are literally tens of industries where the technologies combine together to enable recurring revenues to occur. I'm not talking about reoccurring, but recurring. So the type of model that we like so much is that we try to take away all of the objections that the customer might have. And we simply say to them, look, you pay us the amount that we've agreed upon every month. And if you don't like it, terminate our agreement with, let's say, 90, sometimes it's 60 days notice at any time. So we are on the hook to continue to perform in order to continue the recurring revenue. Why do I like recurring revenue? Because it is much more highly valued than one-off revenues like selling a software license or a piece of iron. That enables us to demand premium prices when we choose to exit our investment. Again, that focus is very important. The focus appears to be narrow, but it is not. Now, out of these, it's about 300 deals now per year. As we said, it's dropped as I age. It's dropped to some 300 from 600. About 80% of those deals that are bought to us do not meet our investment criteria. And we have six quick investment criteria that we use to have a quick, fresh look at each investment. And I'll discuss those. Out of the 100%, 80% do not meet them. 15% or so we run through due diligence. Actually, we run 15 to 20% through due diligence. And out of that comes about 2% deals. 2% of those are actually qualified sort of deals. At this point, we have approximately 11 and a half. We're in the process of closing one right now. Deals in progress. We've had only 48 that we've done over these 20 years. So you can see we only do a couple a year. Now, we've been very, very successful. So we've only had, out of all those we've exited, which is 36, I think, including 4 this year, we've only had this one failure, which happens to be an Austin-based company. The rest of them have been very, very successful. We've only had 2 public offerings out of all of them. So we do not look at the public offering as being the end-all or be-all of all investments. And when I look at the focus and what we do and how we screen the investments early, we're very, very cognizant of the location of the investee. In our case, we want them to be either in the metropolitan Chicago area, where we have an office, or in the triangle between Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, centered in Austin. And the reason we do that is we consider that our time and involvement is very critical. We are not, I stress this, not passive investors. We are active, meaning that we are always on the board or the advisory board of any company that we do business with. We like to invest at a very particular stage. That's called the early A stage. And the reason for that is our experience in marketing and sales, specifically with companies like IBM and ADP and Becton Dickinson, allow us to bring more to the table there than if we were in the seed stage where we were trying to apply our ancient expertise to new technologies. We just find that our contribution is fairly limited there. The revenue model has to be recurring, as I discussed before. That's very critical. The reason for that is we just can't keep up with the technology, but we can keep up with the needs of the marketplace. I also discussed that we have to be active. We cannot be passive only. Size is important to us. We only invest in this from a small amount. I can't even remember what the smallest amount might be, but we go up to $750,000. We want to make sure that we protect ourselves. So we generally have an agreement with a large venture fund to stand behind us if we need to in a follow-on round. We also are very careful to define multiple exit alternatives with the investee and have agreement upon with those alternatives at the time we enter the agreement. We early on didn't do that as carefully as we should have. We found out that the as times changed, the investee had a little different alternative and idea of the way that they thought they would like to exit. It came out, in every case, satisfactory, but it's better to have those agreements up front. So our results have been, through the end of 2013, we had a 33.4 IRR. It'll be better this year because we have 4 nice exits that have occurred already this year, and one other we had hoped to close October 31st, but the publicly held company decided that they did not want to go forward with it. So I think that gives you a real overview of what we do and how we do it. Let me entertain some questions you might have, Hall.
So those are impressive results. What criteria do you have around the entrepreneur himself? Does he have to have a track record or a certain characteristic that puts him in or out of your deal flow cycle? What about the entrepreneur himself?
I think when I first started, I didn't pay a lot of attention to that, and a lot of it was because there weren't that many entrepreneurs in our world that I could go to. But as we have seen deals, even those that we have rejected for one reason or another, as well as those we have completed, and because of our relationships with, the attorneys, the accountants, et cetera, we've been able to begin to focus on what I call the successful entrepreneur. That means the entrepreneur has already done it, et cetera, and been successful before. I know others have backed entrepreneurs just because they think they're good entrepreneurs, despite the fact they might have failed. I have found that failure is contagious, and I don't like to see it acceptable. And sometimes a failing entrepreneur doesn't husband the investor's money as well as he should. So I don't like to see that occur, and I will try to stick as much as I can with a successful, proven entrepreneur.
What about intellectual property? What role does that play in these deals? Often software patents themselves don't really count for that much, but what's your take on that?
Zero value. Absolutely zero value. In the type of business I'm in, I could see a lot of other businesses that are required. And I have a good IT attorney. Very good. And we look at stuff, but most of the time, you're dealing with a procedure or practice sort of IP, not underlying earth-shaking IP that allows you to really have a defensible position. I don't put a penny's worth of that.
Are you preparing these deals for follow-on investments by other funds, say venture or whatever, or are you choosing deals that don't require subsequent investing to your investing?
I'll do it both if, the latter is very common, or deals that we know we can handle the next round ourselves, but we've also established these good relationships with 4 very well-known funds, the names that you would know, but I don't think I should tout them, and that enables me to keep them informed as where I am in each deal. I actually send all of them a quarterly report, all 4 of these funds a quarterly report that tells where I am with each investment, and I get questions from them, and there's normally an indication of whether they would be interested in continuing to look at it or get involved. So the exits that I have at a second round, I don't really exit, but I'm fairly well protected and do not mind at all entering into something when I have that soft backing. We've never had a problem in getting back in a second round. I will tell you that. Not one.
Well, how do entrepreneurs find their way into your process, or rather, do you find the entrepreneurs, or do they find you? And if they're finding you, do they go through an application process, or must they be referred in by a trusted source?
No, as I tried to explain before, our sources come from a number of places. They come from attorneys, accountants, a few PE firms, that know us that where the investment does not quite fit that. These other venture guys, past investments and entrepreneurs that we've dealt with. We are not aggressive in looking for deals. We will always entertain a discussion about a deal, But we're conscious of those 6 distinguishing characteristics that the investment must have for us to go very far. So we have a process that if the applicant does not hit all 6 of those in the very initial stages, we reject it right away. We don't spend a lot of time looking at things that are interesting, but outside of our world. So the deals come to us, I guess is what I'm saying. It's basically because of our focus.
What about investors that want to get involved with you? What's your criteria for bringing on investors who want to join your program?
It's interesting. And in our private equity company, which is Concentric, we have 47 CEOs in the industry who put in $1 million apiece into that private equity fund. Plus, we have 3 corporate investors that put in $15 million each. So it's a pretty small private equity fund. But the whole idea of that fund was to be able to carry on investments out of our venture fund if needed, as well as source other deals that are a little bit later stage. And that has worked out pretty well. We have all kinds of investors with us in those deals, including a whole lot of PE funds and a couple of family funds as well. We don't look for partners in deals. Often the entrepreneur has been talking with somebody else and he likes them for one reason or another, and sometimes they're in deals with us in some relationship. Could be that they're the lead investor, we might be the lead investor, and we can handle either one of those positions as long as we're proactive and very involved in the transaction and the deal itself. Paul, I'm sure you're aware there are, probably 15 or 20 people here in town here in Austin who have invested in my deals. I certainly entertain that, but I don't enter into a deal knowing that I've got to go get a limited partner or an angel investor to invest with me.
That's right. Well, very good, Dick. Thank you so much for taking time to talk today about your investing methodology. It's proven to be very successful and something others people can learn from as well. Did you have any final words that you wanted to share that we haven't talked about so far?
No, not really, but I would just emphasize the word focus. Invest in what you know, not in what you'd like to learn about.
Well, those are very good words of advice. We thank you so much, Dick, and we will sign off for now. Thank you guys for joining us for Angel Connect. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.